There is nothing like the cross. It stands and shall stand forever in all its solitary greatness and grandeur in the center of the circle of eternity. The wonder of every intelligent creature and the pillar upon which is indelibly inscribed the evil and hatred of the fallen being and the goodness of the love of God. Out from amid the dim shadows of the past, it looms upon the vision in all its brightness and blackness, truth and treachery, sunshine and shadow, faithfulness and falseness, righteousness and sin, judgment and mercy, compassion and cruelty, love and hatred. By its light, the heart of heaven is revealed, and the deepest depths of the abyss of evil are discovered. The blessing and the curse there lift their voices together. There welters foul the inky sea of human guilt, and there the unsullied ocean of divine grace swallows up everything within its swelling tides. Nothing in the past can compare with it. Neither can anything in the future arise to rival it. There appears the greatest sin that man ever committed, and there is the mightiest display of infinite mercy on the part of God that can ever come to light. It is the place where man was tested in every spring of his mortal being, and it is where the compassions of God were sounded to their depths. It is where the hostile, fallen creature lifted impetuous hands and struck the Creator with deadly intent, and it is where the answer of the Creator was given in unspeakable and infinite love. It is the witness of wickedness, impossible to be exceeded by man, and it is the evidence of God's favor which he himself could never repeat. The volume of wrath, curse, judgment, and woe which encircled Golgotha, the regions of the lost could not enclose, and heaven itself shall not be vast enough to circumscribe the love, the grace, and the mercy which have been there expressed. If you like that, it's on the back of your bulletin. What a powerful expression as we look back to the cross. But we preach Christ crucified. To the Jews, a stumbling block, to the Gentiles, foolishness. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. For consider your calling, brethren, that there were not many wise according to the flesh, and not many mighty, not many noble. But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong. And the base things of the world and the despised God has chosen, and things that are not, so that he may nullify the things that are, so that no man may boast before God. But by his doing, you are in Christ Jesus, who because of us is the wisdom from God and the righteousness and sanctification and redemption. So then, just as it is written, let him who boasts, boast in the Lord. True story. A few years back, a Messianic Jew named Ilan Zemar was driving through the Arab portion of a village of Israel late at night. All of a sudden he felt a thump, didn't know what had happened, got out to find out that he had run over a 13-year-old boy. What made this so terrible was that the boy was deaf and had not been able to hear the vehicle approaching at all. And so the Israeli police investigated and found him not to be at fault, and no charges were brought against him at all. But as you can imagine, that whole incident weighed heavy on his heart, feeling extremely responsible. So he decided that he wanted to meet with the family and apologize. Again, the social system of that part of the world made this something that was not going to be easy. For the 13-year-old boy lived on the West Bank and was a Palestinian. His friends said, "You can go to that section, but you'll not have any protection in that area because you are a Jew." Yet he decided he wanted to make amends. And so he contacted the family, and the family agreed that they would meet with him. So he sat down with the family at a ceremonial meal that among the Palestinians is called a sula. The custom of this meal is that cups of coffee are set on the table. This part of the world originated good coffee. It is the place where Teresa longs to go for a good cup of coffee. Everyone is seated around the table, steaming cups of coffee in front of them. And no one is to touch their coffee until the father of the Palestinian family reaches for his cup of coffee. And he does not do that until he believes and senses that everyone at this reconciliation meal has made peace with the event. And so they sat there in silence for many, many minutes. And finally, the father of the young 13-year-old reaches for his cup of coffee. And he drinks, signaling everyone else to take their cup of coffee and to drink. The father looked squarely into the eyes of the Jew. Tears streaming down his cheek, he got up, approached him, kissed him 3 times on each side of his face. And then he told him, "Know, O my brother, that you are in place of this son who has died. You have a family and a home somewhere else, but know that this is your second home." Today, as we focus on the supper, here we are. We have killed the Son of God. We were all there. Our sin was there. And yet God, in his mercy, has decided to prepare a reconciliation meal. A place where you and I sit, and we recognize our responsibility in the death of Jesus. But our Father kisses us on both sides of our cheek and says, "I know you have a family someplace else, but you have another home. It's with me." Today, as we look backward to the events that surround the table, let's think with great admiration and beauty of God's willingness to accept us, even though we killed his son.
Good morning. If you have your swords with you, I would invite you to follow along in 3 short readings. Nevertheless, I think it's powerful as we each look into our swords. And as a minister once said, I love the rumbling of those pages as they turn. First is a very familiar passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, where it talks about the Lord's Supper. And we'll be starting there in a moment in verse 23 and 24 of 1 Corinthians chapter 11. And as we look outwardly and think about the Lord's Supper as we adjoin and fix our thoughts and hearts towards one another, and we think about our brothers and sisters sitting here, those that aren't in our midst, and those that are traveling, and those that are away from school, we all share and have different emotions and different thoughts as we contemplate and as we think about this feast that we are about to partake in. And there's nothing right or wrong in any of those. It's all individual, and yet it brings us to a point here today that as a church, as a body, that we come here to partake in this feast as one. And I think there's great symbolism in that, and I think there's a great acknowledgement that we need to give to God's divine setting forth of this so simple of a meal that sometimes we, I think, take it in just haste and not think about its true significance.